This is the watchman giving a clarion call. And boy, did I want to speak to something that I read today. Um, Today, if you would check the headlines, there was something on Zero Hedge. There was a funny story on Zero Hedge from the one and only Jamie Dimon, CEO, of course, of JP Morgan Chase, a very saintly institution that we all love and admire. He shared with us his infinite wisdom about Bitcoin. And, you know, he spoke to Bitcoin in a way that shocked a lot of participants. Basically, he just came out with guns blazing. He called Bitcoin a fraud. He said he would fire anyone who was trading it. He said it was a worse than tulip bulbs type of bubble, and that when it finally blows up, and he says it will blow up, people are going to die, and he personally would fire any trader working at JP Morgan for being stupid enough to buy Bitcoin. Now, of course, why something triggered this man, this total loser, Jamie Dimon, into coming out and condemning Bitcoin. And we know what it is, don't we? But first of all, I want to address this thing about Jamie Dimon referring to Bitcoin as fraud. This man, please understand, Jamie Dimon, he's got all the right cufflinks from the White House. He's got that $1 million smile. He's got all the girls on his arm wherever he walks, and everyone wants to be Jamie Dimon, at least on Wall Street. But the reason why, the real reason why, he came out and lambasted Bitcoin, calling it a fraud, calling it a bubble, calling it something that will cause the deaths of people once it blows up, is because this man knows what fraud is really all about. Jamie Dimon, the insidious sociopath executives in the White House and the Fed, tap on the shoulder to rig markets for them, is engaged up to his ears in the most despicable, epic, multi-trillion-dollar frauds that mankind has ever seen, and he does it every day of his life. The reason why this man condemns Bitcoin of being a fraud is because he knows, it's almost a guilty conscience speaking here. Bitcoin, whether you like it or hate it, a Bitcoin is a Bitcoin. All right, there's a set number of Bitcoins, roughly 15, 16 million. The banks can't print more Bitcoin, and there are no huge exchanges, futures exchanges that banks can rig the price of Bitcoin on. So it's free, mostly free, largely free from banker price control. And so Bitcoin is actually the opposite of fraud. In a real market, Bitcoin is honest. It's more honest than these bankers. Yes, there are exchanges that sell more than they have, but many of those exchanges have been shut down. Bitcoin represents something that he hates more than anything else on earth: truth and freedom for the individual investor and the individual mom and pop who want to desperately shield their life savings and capital from his Toys R Us crime spree, that he's constantly going on. But let's focus on the particulars of the fraud of Jamie Dimon. There was an amazing article written several years ago. And in this article, it came out that JP Morgan Chase has paid. It was written by Lawrence Kotlikoff, and the title of it is JP Morgan Chase America's Most Corrupt Bank? Well, I don't know if it's the most corrupt. There are so many others in league, for that competition. But I would say it probably is. It's probably up there at the top because it is the chief arm of the Fed and these central banks that do the dirty for them personally. And Mr. Kotlikoff in this article references a book called J.P. Madoff, The Unholy Alliance Between America's Biggest Bank and America's Biggest Crook. And he details how this man, Madoff, could never have gotten away with the unbelievable multi-billion dollar amounts of fraud and Ponzi scheming without the blessing and supervision and protection of J.P. Morgan Chase. In fact, later in the article, he outlines how J.P. Morgan Chase has paid in the last 5 years, at the time of that article, $36 billion in fines and settlements over alleged crimes. You understand, most of these crimes never even make it to trial because they know they're guilty. They don't want to be mired down with a larger suit. So they settle. They settle and they settle, and those crimes stay alleged crimes because we never get a chance to prove most of them in court. We never get a chance to prove, beyond the shadow of the doubt, of the guilt of this institution and the serial psychopaths who run these banks. But $36 billion, ladies and gentlemen, $13 billion of that alone was for a settlement in the housing market. If you remember, they were making serious bank off of very shady and fraudulent lending practices in the last housing bubble. So when he says this thing's going to blow up Bitcoin's going to blow up to like a bubble, it's going to kill a lot of people. No, you idiot. No, your practices are all going to blow up like a bubble, like the housing bubble that you were involved in, where that did kill people. Even very wealthy people who lost everything overnight committed suicide because of scum like you, who stole with a smile on your face and pretended to be the righteous man walking the earth. Why does everyone hate me? I just want to give people a good deal on their mortgage. This man is absolute trash. And he has the gall to look at something like Bitcoin and say, it's a fraud, it's a scam. I would fire anyone who's trading. The real reason why he would fire anyone trading it is because they would actually make profit at the expense of his bank. You see, he revealed that J.P. Morgan Chase's trading income is actually down roughly 20-25% in the last business quarter. That is a hefty loss. So a lot of people are chasing Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, monies that were normally flowing into the coffers of these madmen at this bank, are now going to something else outside their control. Sorry, that's my wife's parakeet, Mrs. Watchman's parakeet in the back. This money, which they would be using to rig bond markets, to rig precious metals markets, stackers, honest stackers like us, who have stacked for years and have not been permitted to see the growth, permitted to see the gains, because of literal fraud that this man is neck deep in. These people are despicable. These people are perfidious. These people are just the scum of the earth. And they have held down and rigged markets and destroyed lives. Finally, something comes out that takes away their profits, that injects a greater deal of truth and empowerment to individual investors and consumers, and they literally lose their mind over it. And they're scared of it. He said, no, my daughter, Jamie Dimon said, my daughter invested it. She made a lot of money. Now she thinks she's smart. Well, she's smarter than if she had banked it with you. She's seen what you do. And if you can make gains doing something like that, why not? But we know years ago that they got Blythe Masters on board to look at Bitcoin because they knew it would be a threat. They looked down the corridors of time and saw that, yes, Bitcoin is going to be difficult to control. He says the governments of the world think of Bitcoin as a novelty. That is not true. That is not how the governments of the world see it. The government of the world sees it as what it rightfully is, a huge, singular threat to their power and focus, because it undermines their ability to control the supply and value and power of money. Their brother John F. said recently in a video interview that Bitcoin and the other solid cryptocurrencies of the world represent a changing of the guard. If they can survive this, all the churning, and they go on to change the world, they will substantially weaken the powers that were, because those people will no longer have a monopoly on what is considered money and how they can produce money out of thin air while no one else can, and how these cryptos will and can inject more truth into our daily lives. This is what's happening. That is the real reason why Jamie Dimon is so triggered. Yes, he's mad that his daughter made a bunch of money. He's mad that it's stealing profits, profits off ill-gotten gains, which these bankers believe are rightfully theirs by God. They scorn God, they mock God in their life every day, and yet they act entitled to the wealth of the world, your wealth that's in your pocket, in your bank account, in your safe. They want it, and they think it's all theirs. If they could, they would reach their arm through your computer screen, and they would pick up your pocketbook, they would pick up your wallet, and they would just take it. But they have to let the little guy win a few here and there, or no one would play the game, would they? But that's who we're dealing with. The world is upside down, ladies and gentlemen, when the con artists and the scam artists who live in their ivory towers, their towers of Mordor, looking down on the world, and finally they see something outside their control, and boy, does it burn them alive. Do they hate it? They hate Bitcoin because they can't control it. They hate cryptos because other normal people are actually seeing some real life-changing profits and gains, myself included. I've got cryptos along with my silver, which I still have kept and have never sold. I have stacked, silver and have my cryptos because I knew that there's more than one way to skin a cat. The real enemies are these banksters and their control. And there is more than one way to skin a cat. Any and all ways that assault their power and their monopoly over money to control our lives should be pursued. And that's what I have done. And that's what I suggest you keep doing. Because if arch felons walking around free like Jamie Dimon look down their noses at Bitcoin and say it is fraud, then by God, these people are scared to death. These people just gave Bitcoin the greatest endorsement it could possibly get. This is the Watchman signing out. Stay vigilant and bring the fight to them.